I know we've talked a lot about NIL, and it's kind of hard to avoid at this point. So let's talk the latest when it comes to name, image, and likeness. And the latest is the leaders in college athletics have mobilized, and they want guardrails, and they want them now. They are angry, and the NCAA board of directors will give them the green light Monday. So here's what they want. NIL started 10 months ago, essentially. And since NIL started, if any booster or booster-led collective has been found to have associated with prospects about recruiting on another college team or in high school, they want those people to be found guilty of violating NCAA rules, and they want them punished. They want them sanctioned, whether it's the booster sanctioned or the school sanctioned. They want sanctions. And the way they want to do it is the NCAA enforcement staff. They're coming for all the cheaters, Ted. They're coming for all the cheaters. Even though the NCAA enforcement staff is only like 15 to 20 people now, maybe a manpower issue there, but not exactly a massive department. But they want to enforce the rules that they were supposed to be enforcing. Is that right?
Yeah, I guess. This is so stupid. Well, I guess I'm glad that they're actually at least talking like they're going to enforce the rules. I know they're not going to, but at least they're talking like they're going to start. It's 2022. This has been going on for a year. We maybe will hear something come from this by like 2027 or 2028. No sooner than that, if at all.
Have they punished Kansas basketball yet?
No, that's what I'm saying.
Huh. And now their enforcement staff is even smaller because remember they had to make some cuts because of COVID, just like a lot of companies did, right? So they still haven't gotten around to punishing some of those involved in that whole FBI investigation in college basketball. And now they're just going to start enforcing this stuff quickly. What, they're just going to prioritize it? All 15 to 20 members of the enforcement. I'm going to call it the enforcement force because that sounds way cooler.
Here's the thing. And we talked about this the other day with Golick. They don't have subpoena power over boosters and players. There's no incentive for any of those people to turn over any records or talk to these NCAA enforcement folks for any reason. It's not going to happen. It's just not.
You say that, but let me read you a Pat 40 tweet.
Okay.
Because remember, the reason, and there was a group, there was a working group, right, that was pushing for this to be how NIL started, right? Guardrails in place. And ultimately they decided they couldn't do it because they were so scared with what just happened with the Alston case with the Supreme Court that they were like, no, we'll just get sued into oblivion. We can't do that. And now, oh my gosh, people took advantage of the rules and now they want to do it, right? So the big issue is if they do this, they are going to get sued, and they know that. And Pat 40 tweeted that the NCAA will be calling guys that got offered deals from collectives and, quote, they'll be asked to spill the beans and would be mandated to cooperate. Which really makes me wonder what mandated to cooperate means. I mean, what? Mandated by who? And if they don't cooperate, then what?
Right.
The the fastest way, and remember, I'm not a lawyer, but I feel like I've read a lot about this entire situation to know this. The fastest way for the NCAA to get sued and to even become more and more irrelevant in college athletics is for them to try and punish the players. Right? Try to rule a guy ineligible. Try to, there's no way they would try, but try to make a guy give the money back. They can't do that. And I can't imagine they're going to try to do anything like that now. They've surprised me in the past with some of the decisions they've made, but I think they really just want to know if schools worked closely with collectives and they want to punish those schools. And they may also go after some schools saying that they didn't control their boosters and the collectives that were connected to the school. As far as the boosters, I read some stuff where they said they're going to try to maybe dissociate those boosters from the schools, a la what happened to Reggie Bush at USC. Like, hey, you can't be around for 10 years. Like, schools are going to freak out. You're going to try to dissociate some of our biggest donors. No, you're not doing that. And the schools would just sue the NCAA and they will probably win because they're going to say, for the most part, a lot of these boosters and collectives are compliant with the NIL laws in their state. And they've got some very good lawyers making sure everything they're doing is above board in that state when it comes to the NIL laws. So the schools aren't going to want their big money donors dissociated from the school. Are you kidding me? There's no way.
Well, here's the interesting thing. Just kind of the way I look at it. If the NIL collective is not run by the school, the NCAA has no power. It's not a part of the university, right? They opened the floodgates for this. You can't go back later and say that, oh, well, that's not what we meant, right? You can't do that. Unless I'm missing something, it seems to me like this is like a show of strength to try and rein in some of the stuff and have people start pumping the brakes. Because here's the thing, and this is what we've got to remember. The NCAA works for all of the universities. And I know that they're getting a lot of pressure from a lot of the universities to try and, slow down or stop a lot of what's going on out there. So I think you will see cooperation from a lot of schools, and the schools that don't cooperate, I think that's going to be pretty telling as to what they've done. Now, does that mean that the NCAA is going to be able to go back and look at what they did and sanction them or sanction their boosters or any of the players? I don't necessarily know, but I feel like this is more like a bluff more than anything, just to try and get everyone to start pumping the brakes on calling recruits and offering NIL deals to guys that are already at other schools. And, I could be wrong, but we'll see.
I don't think any of these rich people are scared of the NCAA.
No.
Like, at all. And I will say this. I talked to Plank about this, and I have a bit of a conspiracy theory, and I know you love a good conspiracy theory. So we've heard some really important people in college athletics talk about college football breaking away from the NCAA, and whether that means it being under the control of the college football playoff or under the control of the conferences, that's still unclear to me. But we've heard Jack Swarbrick, the Notre Dame athletic director, bring that up. And now we've heard Gene Smith, the Ohio State athletic director, talk about that as well. This is all in like the last week and a half.
Bob said it on my radio show last Tuesday.
And Bob knows some people, right? And a big part of me saw that because the NCAA knows if they do what they're trying to do, or like these leaders in college football are pushing the NCAA to do this, right? Right. Hey, punish these people. We all know if they do that, they're going to get sued, in all likelihood lose. Right. With what we learned from the Alston case and from, what the Supreme Court said. So a big part of me thinks that these leaders in college athletics are pushing for this to essentially finalize the NCAA's irrelevance and to have that lead to them being able to break off and do their own thing with their own rules. Now, what that looks like, I don't know, but the timing of it is awfully interesting, where you've got all these people, talking about like, oh, well, maybe college football should be its own thing. And now you've got this big push by all of these athletic directors and big time decision makers out in Arizona, all meeting together like, yeah, NCAA, do it. Yeah. Like, it's like, it's like you're at the bar with your buddies, really good looking girl across the bar. And they're like, nudge you, like, do it, man. We all know it's going to end poorly. They know it. Maybe even you know it, but they're like, you got it, man. Come on, do it. You got to do it. I feel like that's what's happening here. Now, it's just a theory, but I guess the next question is, okay, if something like that happens, who makes the cut? Who doesn't? I don't know, but when guys like Swarbrick and Smith are saying stuff like that, and then the same guys are pushing the NCAA to get really, really proactive about the NIL stuff, I don't know. It's interesting to me.
Yeah, there is a bit of satisfaction to know that there's a good chance that the NCAA is being herded off a cliff and they don't even know it, right?
That's a better analogy than the buddies at the bar. Yeah, no, that's herded off the cliff is definitely better.
I don't know. I feel like that's where we're going, at least with football. But I don't know if I should be excited about that or if I should be resistant to that. I don't know. There's so much change right now, and ultimately I want college football to be a good system that is regulated, that is fair, that gives as many schools an opportunity as possible to be successful. We happen to cover one of the schools that is a have. There's a small group of haves, there's a large group of have-nots. I would like to see everyone a little closer to equal. And maybe that's a little bit of a detriment to Oklahoma, but I think Oklahoma has a good administration, a really good coaching staff, good players, and I feel like the more you allow stuff like this to go on, the less it has to do with how you run the program and how your administration is and how good your coaches are at actually coaching football. And it just becomes more of how good are you at raising money? That just doesn't seem right to me for pursuing a championship.
Yeah, the more I think about it, the more torn I am, because I love college football, and I also want the guys to be able to essentially make as much money as they can, like make as much money as people will pay them. But you got to think about the overall health of the sport and how the current system and the way it's operating could affect how invested fans are. And I think that's where you start thinking like if enough fans decide that they don't love the system, like, and that starts affecting viewership numbers, then that starts affecting TV deals, and like there's definitely a domino effect to all that. But George Kliavkoff and Greg Sankey, they traveled to Washington D.C. late this week, and they met with U.S. senators in an effort to work toward getting some sort of federal NIL legislation in place that would apply to every state. And I think that is something that, that even Mark Emmert said that would change a lot. It would be good for this entire system. But the federal government's got a lot going on, man. Midterms are in November. This is not very high on the member of Congress's priority list right now. Like I can't talk. Why do I even do this if I can't talk? The to-do list, my gosh, the to-do list of a United States senator. I can't imagine the NIL situation is very high up on that list, but a big part of that trip is, from what I understand, was for Sankey and for Kliavkoff to lay out how bad football players becoming employees could be for the rest of college athletics. And I think that's kind of something you're hinting at, Ted. And it's something that I've thought about over the last couple of days, right? Because I think you've got three main options right now. You've got what the leaders of college athletics and the NCAA are going to try to do with the enforcement force, right? We're going to catch all the cheaters. We're going to crack down with our 15 to 20 people doing it. Okay, that doesn't seem very realistic to me. Then you've got, kind of the way down the road view of things where college football players become employees and they're getting benefits and they're getting salaries, and that becomes a new expense for the university. And that money's got to come from somewhere. And if you are allocating money currently to something, let's say a rowing program or a tennis program or a golf program or a gymnastics program, if you're currently allocating money to something that is losing you money, maybe you look at this new expense of having to pay these college football players and you go, sorry, gymnastics. That money's got to go to these football players now. And I've thought a lot about that. And I've thought a lot about what could be eliminated if college football players become employees. And I think I don't think we would like how that would end up. I'm okay with the current system if it means that a bunch of kids don't lose their opportunity to be college athletes. Like if the options are the chaotic thing we got going right now, or making these kids employees, organizing it a little bit, and cutting a bunch of other athletic programs, give me the current chaotic system. I think that's where, because playing a sport in college, I think if you can do it, I would just recommend it so highly. So I just don't want a bunch of young people across the country to miss out on that opportunity so that, football players are getting a cut of TV revenue or whatever it would be. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, there is no easy answer. That's the thing. There's not. I think the thought of college football going on its own away from the NCAA, well, I think some of that sounds good, but you mentioned like what's the cutoff point for who makes that group and who doesn't? Is it the Power Five? Well, if it's the Power Five, everyone else withers and dies. Like if you're not a part of that group, then there's going to be no money there at all as far as television deals, and I know it's already very small, but you might as well you just overnight turn those schools into D2, right? If they're not a part of that. So, I mean, that's a problem with that. I mean, you mentioned cutting other programs. Let me ask this: is the easiest way to do this is just eliminate the current rule about going early to the NFL and just eliminate it? You can go to the NFL whenever you want. If you want to make that jump and go start making money, you can go whenever you want to go.
I certainly think, and I've talked a lot about that, right? Especially in the case of a guy like Will Anderson or a guy like Bijan Robinson, right? But especially Will Anderson. He would have been the number 1 overall pick this year. That man should not have to play any more football for free. I say free. I'm sure right. Will Anderson's got some good income flowing in there in Tuscaloosa. But I am one of those people that maybe you could make it 2 years.
Now, just to clarify, that's an NFL rule. That is not a college rule.
Correct. This would be
NFL thing.
That would have to be something.
But I think there's like there's an understanding between the NFL and college, in my opinion, because the NFL typically would take guys whenever. But college football has probably said, listen, we need our stars, right? In order for this thing to be relevant and be as big as it is and really be what it's become, we need those guys to be able to hang around here and play for several years. In the NFL, I think, in order to maintain a good relationship, has probably said okay to that. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think the NFL looks at it going, we have the best minor league system where these programs are putting just an incredible amount of resources into these players. We don't have to pay a dime for them.
Right.
Now, why would the NFL change anything? They got a pretty sweet system going. But yeah, I don't know what's going to happen with NIL. Those guidelines are coming this week. It'll be interesting. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about it when those new guidelines are released. But yeah, man, it feels like the future of college football. Like, and once again, I'm not trying to scare anyone. I don't think college football is going anywhere. Certainly Oklahoma football is not going anywhere, right? This thing's going to keep rolling, right? Oklahoma's one of the premier programs. OU's going to be fine. But as far as, Tulsa, right? What is the future of Tulsa football?
There's not very many programs out there that operate in a like Oklahoma is one of the few athletic departments that operates with a surplus, and it's rare.
Yeah, so a lot is happening. Should be an interesting week.